stuff up so I can get ready to retweet.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Miss Pinky Thoughts. I am your host and your girl, Miss Pinky, and I have a great guest with me today. I have Mr. Solomon Graham. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am great. Oh, this is a new episode of Miss Pinky Thoughts inside of Conscious Conservative Media. And before we get started, I'm just going to do a little bit of pluggables, and then we can get right up into it.
Do you think?
Yes, I am a host inside of the media network, and above is all of my, if you like what I do and you want to like and subscribe to the channel, please do. I also have my donate at the top for Cash App, and on the other side for my PayPal, and all of my linkables and my social media at the bottom, and Conscious Conservative Media at the drop. I took a little bit of break and we're back now into this. How are you doing, sir? We're going to get right into our topic for today.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I'm doing well.
That's good.
Just happy to be here. Happy to discuss this topic. This is one that I enjoy talking about, obviously, from a previous show that we did together. So I'm definitely looking forward to the topic tonight.
Well, tonight we're going to talk about BLERD culture. And I know when I posted it on social media and on Twitter, people were like, beard culture, BLERD culture. They didn't know what I was talking about. Can you, first, before we get into what is BLERD culture, I want them to know who you are. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then we'll get back into, what is BLERD culture.
No doubt, man. Like I said, she gave my whole government name. So like I said, name's Solomon Graham. People call me Saul G or whatnot. You can follow me at 50 Shades of Saul G on Twitter. I have an independent media network that I started called LibreTV.co. So you can go over there. I have a couple of probably about 7 to 8 podcast shows that are available over there as well. When you ask who I am, what I do, I guess you would call me, I'm a small business owner. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I am now the owner of a turtle, apparently. Shout out to the missus out there that, she can't stop saving animals. So, yeah, apparently I'm the owner of a turtle right now. And, man, just all around, I consider myself an all around individual. I'm definitely a part of, I'm within the same network that you're in, as well, the Conscious Conservative Network as well. But my focus has shifted a lot less about the politics, and I've moved more towards self-sufficiency, because that's basically my focus now, how to become self-sufficiency and with that self-sufficiency, move people into a better direction for their life. So it's like, I'm letting everybody kind of sort of, take their lane, and that's the lane that I'm choosing.
Awesome. I love it. Self-sufficiently definitely supports over here at the Conscious Conservative Network. Now let's get into this topic. We're talking about BLERD culture, and I would like to see what would your definition of BLERD culture be, or what is a BLERD? How would you define it?
I would define it as like it's like black nerd culture, right? I think when I hear that term BLERD, it was like you're black but you're a nerd and you were into some things that I think the BLERD culture has become more popular over time, but I feel like definitely I grew up, or I was born in 1982, so growing up in the 90s, being a nerd wasn't necessarily the most popular thing back then. To talk about, like, it's almost like to talk about openly. You know what I mean? You might have done it, but it wasn't something that it wasn't the topic of discussion at the lunchroom table in high school. So yeah. You still had to laugh at the other kids over there playing Dungeons and Dragons, but then it was like you walked over there and was like, God, I really want to play, but I'm just like, I got a track meet later on this week, and I do want to have a date for prom, so I can't be caught playing Dungeons and Dragons with these dudes. So I think that's what it was. It was just, you're into a lot of different things that weren't popular from just back then video games was even a large part of BLERD culture that is I mean, video games now is just like the standard, but back then having video games and playing video games wasn't necessarily like the cool thing to do either. So comic books, games, video games, a lot of the movie culture. So, your Star Wars, your Star Treks, things like that, all that would be considered the same thing that you would have in, I guess, white culture, but it's the fact you were black, they call it BLERD. So that's what it was.
Yeah, I was talking to you a little bit before the show, and I was telling you how it wasn't really a thing that we didn't really separate ourselves because we wasn't really trying to shine a spotlight on us being nerds. It was just something you did towards the side. So
Yeah.
you definitely consider yourself a BLERD. What is something that you would just off the bat consider yourself a fan of, or what's your thing? What do you like?
Well, it's like we got to kind of go back and start from the beginning. We got to work our way up until it wasn't cool. You know what I mean? Like when it still wasn't cool. So I think it's one thing to say like you're a fan of a certain movie or a certain TV franchise, whatever the case may be. But to me, the nerdy part of it was, did you go beyond what was basically handed to you, right? And I used to have this thing. Like I remember one of my most one of the best animated shows ever to me was Batman, the animated series, and X-Men, the first one. And I remember I would just go and read up on like to me, like I really wanted to know, was adamantium a real element? I went out and I got my periodic table and I'm like, what is the hardest element on here? I don't see adamantium on here, and I'm sitting there and I feel like that would be like something very nerdy to go start looking at these powers, right? Like I would go look at Cyclops, for example, and said he had an optic blast. And I was like, what does that even mean? So it's like you start going back and you have to, back then we didn't have the internet like that's accessible. So I had to go in an actual dictionary and read what all these terms meant. But it was also going to a comic book store and getting comics or getting talking to the guy who ran the shop, I think that's something that's very lost, like going to an actual comic book store and talking to the guy, be like, just with the different things. But I would say what started me off in it would just have been like my cartoons. So we grew up in a good era. So that's your Transformers, your Voltron, your Thundercats, all the things. I mean, even the gummy bears and things like that. That let me know right there, like, oh, okay, I really enjoy things that take me outside of reality. Then I think what really started to really get it there was like when the Terminators movies came out, right? So I remember when T2 came out, I was like, this is really cool. So I think that's really what did it, along with I was really into James Bond. So those were like what kind of got me started in there. So if I had to say the first thing that really got me into that really let me know I was different was James Bond, because that was something that I got to do with my dad, and I got to go back and watch all the old Roger Moore and Sean Connery videos. So yeah, so I would say I started off with James Bond.
Awesome. That's almost, it's like who's your favorite Bond versus who's your favorite Batman. But you get a chance to think.
We'll put a pin in that, but keep going.
We'll put a pin in that.
Okay.
So you saying that you're not some of these people that just jumped into culture now because it's trending. You were back then looking at the different shows like X-Men and the old 90s Spider-Man, and then you were actually reading comic books. You had them in your hand and things like that.
Yeah, I actually had like physical comic books. My mom, I had to actually hide them because my mom was really deep into the church, so she actually threw away a lot of my comic books because I had to try to hide them because she would tell me they were demonic and I wasn't supposed to be reading them. And I'm like, Ma, it's fantasy. It's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? But it's like I really got into some of the computer games and stuff that were coming out during the time. And I really got into like the fantasy aspect of being the only boy growing up, because I was the youngest. I had 3 sisters, but being the only boy played into it. But it was like nobody was really going to be in the same mode as me, right? Like when it came time like to watch something on TV, it's like I'm gonna always get outvoted. Everybody wants to watch soap operas, right? So I even knew about like The Young and the Restless, The Bold and Beautiful. I even knew about like that because like I had my sisters. But I'm like, when 4 o'clock came, I'm like, okay, cool. Let me watch Power Rangers, and they're like, no, we're not watching that. We're gonna watch
Oh,
Ricky Lake, or we're gonna watch something else. So it'd be like, I had to go and find something else to like do. So to me, the real nerd aspect of it, when I especially got into this one game that introduced me to like the fantasy element, right? Like your dwarves and your elves and stuff like that. So when I started getting into that type of stuff, I was like, oh wow, this is something that I can really do, and it's fun. And I didn't even necessarily need anybody. So it was like at that point, I would use stuff like that to just kind of, I guess you could say, escape, because I wasn't allowed to have as much freedom TV wise at my house. So that's kind of how that happened.
awesome, awesome. The blur culture has exploded, and now you can see different industries are catering to that. How do you
Mhm.
feel about how they're actually starting to cater to the black nerd culture and black consumers in general with this now as a trend?
I, I feel like we always go like 20, 30 years back to try to make something cool again. When, in my opinion, it was cool before. It, I think the people who are a part of the old blur culture are some of the more, uh, to me, they're good individuals to get along with, because that means they didn't do things. To me, it meant you thought outside the box. It meant you had a decent level of imagination, but it also meant like you're not afraid, even though you weren't necessarily like open with it, but you weren't afraid to just not go with whatever is cool, and you could find enjoyment. You basically didn't mean like you didn't just go with whatever trend or whatever was popular at the time. It's like you can say, oh, okay, I can stand on my own 2 feet, even though I'm not just telling everybody this, but it's something that I could enjoy on the side. So when I ask somebody, so when you ask me like, how do I feel about it now? I'm like, I think it's good, but I'm also kind of like, why now? Because when you talk about the black nerd culture, it's perfectly acceptable to have conversations that, would have got you kicked out of the cool people table, 20 some years ago. But it's like now it's a perfectly acceptable conversation to have. So I will say this, I think it's good for those kids that it's almost like a closeted thing. Like you can be openly excited about the things that you like now. So I think that part of it is good. Um, as far as black advertising goes, I'm not very excited about what I see from black advertisement, only because I think, what are we being marketed for? It's not like, for example, you don't really see that like you don't see like a corporate commercial for the most part, and it's got like black people in it. You understand what I'm saying? Like a corporate position talking about like their job or their company, they might have a black person sprinkled in or something like that, but it's not really to show you what the company is about. It's like we're all over fast food. They've got some sort of little trendy little song that they want us to, like, the McDonald's, the whole Mac Cafe thing that they came out with was all targeted towards black people. But I'm like, but that's just unhealthy food. So it's like, whoop de doo. We're targeted as, cars, things like that. You'll see us in a lot of these car commercials, dancing, going out to the club or doing something else. So it's just like all these other different things. The image, in my opinion, needs to change. So if the image was a lot more positive, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with it, because I understand the black consumer dollar is something people should go after. However, I'm to the point now where if they would kind of leave black people alone for a while, I wouldn't I wouldn't mind, because it's better that, you know what I mean? Like the Popeyes commercial annoy me. When they're just talking about, like, they got black people and they're talking about how great a chicken sandwich is, and, oh, this one sound like it was dunked in heaven and make you want to slap your mom. I'm like, but then it's like,
And they keep that going. They threw the Taco Bell dog out of here, but they got the
man,
black lady in there still selling that chicken. So
thank you. Or like now they've got the, like, air quote social media people that they're bringing on there, or like even the one, there's like a black dude on this Whopper commercial and he's eating a Whopper. He's like, oh my god. He was like, man, your sandwiches. I mean, it's just it's a bit much for me. So I would say I don't like the way we're being marketed because we're being marketed with stuff that's not positive, that's not good.
Now, conscious conservatism, the channel that my channel is on is more political based, so we was going to lean into politics a little bit. So since you have a history with being a BLERD and being into the comic books and movies industry, how has it affected you seeing how politics has crept into these things? And now the same people are screaming about maybe female body images or maybe how Black people are represented in characters, how that's been changed over. Those people probably would have been like, comics are for kids a couple years ago. Now they're yelling the loudest when it comes to these movies and these comics and things like that. How do you feel about that now that politics has been taken over in that industry too?
Well, the one thing people have to understand is politics has always been a part of comic books because it was a way to get a message across, but not really one of like bother people. Like I tell people all the time, the X-Men was created to talk about Black people. You understand what I'm saying? Like you might not want to believe that's what Stan Lee had, but if you look at the things that happened to the X-Men, how they're shunned away from society, they're basically trying to say, hey, we're just like everybody else, but we kind of got these superpowers where we can run fast, we're really strong, we got these different powers that make us sometimes we look different than you, but you want to treat us like we're a subhuman species and we're not nothing, we're not here just for evil causes, we can actually help out. And that was Stan Lee before he died. He clearly said that's what it was about. So when people talk about politics coming into comic books, the first thing I say is, well, they never left. The problem is how you're not using it in its original source material, right? Like Black Panther, for example. Everybody who knows about Black Panther knows who did Black Panther start out fighting? The KKK. You understand what I'm saying? So a situation where it's like, when people say like, well, it shouldn't have politics or this, I said, well, you got to look at how it's being used. The problem I have is they're moving issues into comic books that are outside of the original intent. So that's one of the things that I dislike. Like, for example, we see a lot of this gender changing or race changing in a lot of these superheroes. And I'm sitting there asking myself, but why? If the comic book character, for example, is a man in the comic books and it's a white man, leave it as a white man. I don't need to see the character that I grew up being a white man converted into a Black man or a white woman to feel like, oh, this is more progressive. It's like it doesn't make any sense to me. And I feel like you are now upsetting, and to me, it's upsetting to me because it's upsetting that BLERD culture, because it's like now that comic books are cool and you can exploit the genre, now you want to start trying to push your political message through it. And to me, that part I don't like, because like a good example of this was the last Fantastic Four movie they came out with, where they made the Human Torch Black with Michael B. Jordan. And I'm watching this like, and I'm looking and I'm trying to say, okay, well, he's not going to be Johnny Storm. He was Johnny Storm. And I'm like, okay, this is problematic, because there are characters that you can finesse that with, like, for example, your Green Lanterns, right? You got your, what's my guy's name? You got John, whatever his name is, the Black Green Lantern from the Justice League. John Stewart, right?
I got you.
Right, but then you've got like all the white ones, that have
the original. Mm-hmm.
Correct. So it'd be like, if you're going to do John Stewart, make him Black and make him a Black man. Don't change him into a Black woman because you're trying to push something showing how progressive you are. If you're going to use the white one, like I said, my memory is escaping me right now. But one of Hal Jordan. There we go. If you're going to use the Hal Jordan version, use a Hal Jordan version and make him white. Don't change him up. Don't change it. I don't even want you to change his hair color. If he was blonde, keep him blonde. If he's redheaded, keep him redheaded. I don't even want you to go that far. But it's like, that's one of the major problems that I see. They're pushing their own personal political agendas by messing up comic book lore. So
now I have a good one to expound on this, because I've seen it done where it was bad, and I've seen it done where it worked. Like, some people didn't like that Wally West in CW's Flash became Black and Iris was Black. But I think the way they did it and how he stayed true to his character, and because he was just the way they did it, I think it was done more tastefully. They didn't just try to erase um, the white one, or the
Right.
way that they did. The Falcon becomes Captain America. He walked through that, and they walked through that entire journey by making it a series instead of just one or two movies. You were able
Right.
to walk through, and they were able to not only show respect for Steve, they were able to show how carrying that shield would affect the black person. They brought the black issues in it. They brought the old issues with Zaya in it.
Right.
So we've seen them do it in a way that's positive, and we also can see them do it in a way that's negative. Like, I agree with you. I seen them. They asked for a black Superman, but I'm like, why we can't have Hancock too? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is wrong with? I think my sister likes to call it black washing instead of
Yeah.
whitewashing.
Correct.
Like, there's no black nerds that know that Clark Kent is a white guy, and I'm completely fine with Clark Kent coming from another planet, coming here as a white man. We
Yeah.
don't.
Even. Yeah. Now, I mean, I always, that was something funny that Hotep Jesus said, that he said, now Superman is really black because his name is Khalil and he gets his power from the sun. But that's just a funny thing that Hotep Jesus had said one time. I was like, but yeah, that's a joke. You know what I mean? Talking about his real name is Khalil. What guy Khalil get his powers from the sun, and you trying to tell me he a white? Come on, you know what I mean? But I think that I would agree with you in those two examples that you used, but at the same time, was Wally and was the Flash character, or was Irish, were they experiencing like racism in the show? Were people looking at the flat what's his name? See, once again, my Barry, correct. Yeah. Thank you. Were they looking at Barry and Iris together and people were giving them baths? Did they have like any episodes that kind of focus on them being an interracial couple or anything that you can remember?
Episodes focused on that, but there was a lot on Twitter. There were people who wanted him with Caitlyn and was saying Iris was trash, but I don't know if it was people, the black nerds were saying it was racial, but white people were like, no, we just don't like how Iris is written.
Correct. So, but that's my point, right? Like, if the show didn't take any focus out, because I believe the captain in that show was gay, right?
Yes, Captain Thing. Yes, Captain.
Okay, so the captain was gay, but once again, they did not, in my opinion, focus on it.
Yeah,
it was like you can change some things around, and it not necessarily be the focus, and it works. Same thing, like you said, with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It was, in my opinion, done tastefully, versus when it's done not to me in a necessarily as tasteful way. And I'll use Black Panther, the movie, as an example. I don't feel like the dialogue in Black Panther was done as well as I wanted it to, because the way the Wakandans, like let's just get into it. The whole colonizer thing, it was like, now I feel like you're pushing more or less of a political agenda, because I'm not going to even, you got to think about it like this. If you know what Wakanda means, and you know what it represented in the comic books of being this, let's just be honest, superior area of the world that had basically been untouched by people, I don't even think they would have recognized them and even used that terminology, because in my opinion, the Wakandans had to be some of the most nationalist people you probably would want to run into. So you even using that term colonizer, it's almost like funny the way that they use it. But in my opinion, it's like, I feel like
they should have some conservatives on that. Right?
I mean, it was because, like, to me, it was weird. It was to me, and it was being forced a lot. It was like you're trying to make a point. I got what they were talking about with Killmonger and him wanting to go and air quote help out the people who had been persecuted, disenfranchised, whatever, the poor people around the world. I get it. The problem is when you're going to go off script, you got to be able to relate this to anything, to the source material. And when it doesn't line up with the source material, I'm like, oh, you're trying to make a point. But it's like, how woke can you try to be on this white man thing, right? Like, we don't want the white man messing up Wakanda. We don't want you here, was kind of the message. Even people outside of it were like, this is our movie. White people don't go see it. And I'm sitting there thinking, but a white man wrote it.
Oh, you talking about the politics outside of the movie?
Outside of the
issues with the politics inside the movie because
right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But it was a little bit of both.
Border wall, border troops. They had a wall. They had the power to stop slavery, and I ain't see what here's Wakanda throwing spears to stop colonization. So I mean, we could get into Black Panther because
right, but no, I agree with you on that because I remember I had even put a meme up. Right, I said everybody loves Black Panther, but y'all hate Trump. This don't make any sense. Like everything Trump is talking about, y'all hate it because it's Trump. But I said, but Wakanda is what pro Wakanda, right? They got a wall up that they saying they don't want nobody coming in here who ain't from Wakanda, and you better have proof that you are here, or you're gonna be some consequences, right? You know what I mean? Because they was just straight up. I mean, you got to be honest. They were just straight up killing people. Like the dude didn't go into it. He used the term claw. He used the term that said they will make people disappear. But what do you think that means? He killed them. They were like, they don't want nobody in their country because they saw what y'all did and y'all messed up the world outside of Wakanda. So we don't want y'all in here. And I'm sitting there watching this like, but y'all hate what Trump is trying to do. You know, not even trying to readdress that. But it's like, come on, you can't be on this woke tip and then you see what somebody's doing in real life and you're like, you know, shoot, if I was in Wakanda, I'd do the same thing. And I'm looking like,
we not allowed in Wakanda. We not African. I'm sorry, but that I know.
Come on, man. Like it was hurting me to watch it, and I'm watching it, and I'm sitting here looking at everything in the movie, like, huh?
Am I supposed to be Team Killmonger? Or am I supposed to be Team T'Challa? I'm confused. my politics.
That's what made it, in my opinion, the politics inside of that made it very, very problematic because, in my opinion, Killmonger had a point. Why did y'all let all this stuff happen? If y'all supposed to be this advanced society, y'all stayed away, and it's like now, you know, everybody's all of a sudden like, oh, well, I like Killmonger now. You know, I didn't even necessarily want what's his name to come back at one point because I'm like, he's actually making some sense. But then it was like, so if you look at how the movie ended, it's like, oh, so the way to go was to share your wealth, your technology, all the things that you have been building over centuries. That's the right thing to do. Now, after everything that's happened, it's like, I don't even know if I agree with everything that I'm watching right now. So Black Panther had a lot of different things in it, good, bad, whatever. But a little bit of that I did think was kind of forced.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a different one then. Okay. There's so many examples of this, and I'm sorry if I'm humping on Marvel. That's why I went with a little bit of CW with DC, and I got a couple of others. So we have a Black man that can get shot and take bullets. His name is Luke Cage, and the politics that was in that. And I don't know if you got how far you got into it, but it ended with Luke Cage being called semi-Luke Trump because of how he took over the club and how he ended on that note. And we don't get it anymore because they stopped the Defenders show with Netflix.
Right.
But, we had the Defenders, which was Luke Cage, and then we had the feminist power with Jessica Jones, and then we had Daredevil, and then we had the white billionaire that was like Tony Stark, which was Iron Fist. Right. Now we could talk about the white man playing what people thought should have been an Asian role, or we could talk about Luke Cage and the New York atmosphere, how they had different hip hop artists on the show, and so how did you feel about that?
Well, to me, it's more or less being that forced stuff, right? Like Luke Cage was a hero because they said, oh, he's a hero because the police got somebody that they can't just shoot in the middle of the street. It's like, okay, I hear you. I hear what you're saying, but it's like, that's not even his character in the comic books. It's like, that's not even where he's at. You know what I mean? Because it was like, everybody was like, oh, they was kind of woke on Luke Cage. Then we started messing with Jessica Jones. They were like, wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? It was like, what happened? Where did y'all go? You see what I'm saying? And it's like, if you knew what was going on in the comic books, it's like, well, I was like, oh, are they going to do this Jessica Jones thing? Because
they supposed to.
Yeah, you made him a little bit too woke. And I said, that's why they brought in the Latin woman to be kind of sort of the in-between. But then I was like, but he's eventually got to get with Jessica Jones, right?
Yeah, so how is Hotep's gonna?
but that's what makes it problematic. People want to go, and that was what was funny to me when people start trying to make all these woke memes, or they try to say all this. Oh man, Luke Cage, bro. I bet they hate having Luke Cage in real life because they know he could just be like, "Nah, I ain't gonna do this, and you can't shoot him," and blah 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 blah. Man, and they started doing all the memes, and then all of a sudden it was like, "Oh shoot, he got with that white woman." It was like, ah man, it was really bad. You know what I mean? But it's like, once again, if you was a part of the culture before, you know what's coming. But if you're not, you're going to take something that you see directly in front of you and run with it. So that's what I saw.
Miss Fry's Arts is in the building, and she put up there Black Lightning, and I was with Black Lightning in the beginning. I was so excited that they was going to do Black Lightning. He was original character in Crisis on Infinite Earth. He was original black superhero back in the day.
Yeah, but it was one of the superheroes where they still had to put black in the title.
Yes. And that's another thing I love about the Falcon and Winter Soldier is that he explained it's not Black Falcon, it's Falcon.
Exactly. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying about him?
But Black Lightning took on now. If you know the history of the DC universe, you know that they had the multiverse already established at this point when it came into being a show on CW. So what was going on in Freeman technically wasn't what we consider Earth 1 or where we might consider where we live, because we're with Barry and Arrow and everything. So this is a different Earth. But they still had black issues. They still was fighting the man and marching. And I don't know if you watched Black Lightning, but did you feel like they started pandering again with Black Lightning again? And
okay, so I guess my second question would be, but did you like Black Lightning?
Yes, I love the superhero stuff. I love when it's
No, I'm talking about, but did you I'm talking about the series.
The series, me personally, no, because I felt like
I was just thinking because I was about to say, yeah, we about to have a real big disagreement on Black and White.
No, I didn't, and I felt like if they would have let him do his superhero thing, and he's just a man being a superhero, but it's like they had to focus.
They brought way too much stuff on that show. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind if you want to express an issue when you're doing a show, right? You say, oh, I have this platform, I'm going to use it to bring light to an issue, right? Perfectly fine with you doing that. However, the problem is why it was just too much. Like, I remember watching Black Lightning and it was like, the march and the protest and what was going on with the school, his daughter just all of a sudden being gay. And it's like, this is way too much that y'all are trying to do. And it was like, the way I got to look at it, like the way they did it, it was like Black Lives Matter doing comic books. And I was like, I don't like this at all. That's the way I looked at Black Lightning. Black Lightning was BLM doing a comic book show. And I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling this at all. Because it was too much. I want you to focus on the superhero stuff. But it's like the show had so much of the other like social justice stuff in there. Like I couldn't get into it. I still watched it because I'm a nerd and I wanted to be able to. That's why I'm able to have an opinion on it. I just didn't cut it off. But I definitely didn't watch past. I think it had maybe 2 seasons or 3 seasons. I don't know how many seasons it had.
Yeah,
but I don't think I got past the second season because I was like, I can't do it anymore. I can't invest my time in this show when it's just like I'm just being hit with stuff all day about, even the Black woman stuff about how hard it is and about how she even felt like she wasn't a real superhero because they wouldn't accept the Black woman as a superhero. I'm like, whoever said you had to be accepted? You're saving people. That's all that matters. What are we talking about? You're not accepted as a real superhero? Go out and save somebody.
It makes it feel like you have to choose between your blackness and your nerdness, and you're like, which am I more? Am I more
I tell people, man, I was a nerd before I even knew what color I was a nerd. That's what I'm trying to say. Like I was with that way before the blackness, but I'm like, I do not understand why these shows cannot just keep everything simple. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, you don't need to go that deep into every single thing. And sometimes we just want to see the cool stuff. That's fine.
I do want to shift gears a little bit because I didn't want it to
Sure.
be heavily talking about just comics, but I
Okay.
want to talk about our anime love. You know that, but a lot of it seemed like it exploded, and a lot of Black people in general, or just people in general, just love anime, manga, Japanese this and Japanese all of that, right? I know it started with me with Dragon Ball, and then I was in the Sailor Moon, and then it just went on and on. And
Right.
everybody's waiting for that next episode of One Piece.
Okay.
So, but since we're making this about blerd culture, we have to talk about like how it's a little different for Black people, how they had made a issue with Mr. Popo and possibly looking like blackface, and
Okay.
how do you feel as an anime fan and all of that, and like cosplay and things like that?
Yeah. Well, I'll put it to you like this. When it comes to anime, you got to look at Japanese culture. And what people don't understand about Japanese culture is the Japanese, once again, a very nationalist society. So when you start talking about Black people, honestly, I am going to say I laugh because I feel that it's funny that Japanese anime is incredible sometimes. The animation is really, really good. I mean, sometimes they make stuff look incredible. They still don't necessarily know how to draw Black people yet. It's like they're still struggling. It's like the hands. The hands are always what get me because I'm like, yo, our hands pretty much look the same. It's like they always can never get the other side of the hand right. You know what I mean? Like when you got a Black character, they always make their hands look. I mean, you just got to be honest, kind of, sort of like a primate. You know what I mean? They cannot get the hands together. But once again, when I'm watching anime, what am I watching it for? Am I watching it because I'm waiting to see a Black character that I can air quote relate to? Or am I watching it because I'm trying to get enjoyment? I want to get into the story. That's the reason why I like the question, because honestly, I don't. The people who are just getting on now, those are the people who are pointing out the fact that, oh my God, Mr. Bobo was in blackface. Or a big one that they like to point out is the what was it in Naruto, right? People from the Hidden Cloud Village. They were supposed to represent the Black people, and they were trying to say like the Eight Tails was racist and cliche because he's a rapper and he's writing down rhymes while he's fighting. And you know, they the ones with the tattoos. And I'm like, y'all are really looking at this way too deep. Oh, and their specialty in the Rain Village is to be really, really fast. Like, you know, I'm like, come on, man. But once again, I don't feel that I was watching it. I agree with what my guy Ronald says. Yeah, the Black or the colored people that was in Naruto were drawn very well. But you look at a show like, for example, one that's on Netflix, right? Have you seen Baki?
I haven't seen
Okay,
that.
now there's this Black dude on Baki that is huge. Like, I mean, he's just got muscles on top of muscles. And I forget his name, but anybody who's seen the show Baki knows exactly what I'm talking about. They made this really, 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 really muscular Black dude, but they still can't get his hands right. You know what I mean? Like the hands still look weird. Or a lot of people got excited when there was a Black person on Attack on Titan, right? I think in the final season there was a random Black character that came out of nowhere, and people got excited. But the bottom line is, when you talk about having a Black character, even the one, I'm gonna tell you one that did it right now. I don't know if did you watch One Punch Man?
Yes. Oh,
Okay, so you already know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
What's his name? The Shine guy, right? Now people was like, is that racist? And I said, well, you know what? I said, let me go back and analyze it, right? So you want to tell you what? I actually went back and analyzed it, and honestly, I don't think that it is, because, and I'm going to explain to you why. Because what I found out was he's not Black. He's Japanese, but he worked out so much. Basically, what he's saying is, yeah, exactly. He's not Black. They basically say he worked out so much that he just has this glow about his body because he's worked out and he's that strong. So that's the reason why he doesn't have no hair, because that's the other thing, right? You got to look at it like this. Saitama got so strong he lost his hair, right? Yeah. This guy got so strong he lost his hair, but he just has this shine with it. So everybody was saying, like, when they see him, they're like, yo, that's racist. This is blackface. And I'm saying, at the end of the day, this is what I always want to say. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to concern myself with whether or not the I forget whatever his name is, but the shine guy, right? I don't need to concern myself with whether or not he's black and whether or not he's being drawn correctly or whatever, because it's unimportant at the end of the day. Is the story good? Is the action good? Is it funny? That's the part that I'm looking at. But it's like people who are just getting into it now they're trying to go back, and it's like you want to take issues with some of the things that you're seeing in these shows. Like, did you see Yasuke, the Black Samurai? Did you see that one? With what's the guy's name? His name is God, not Keith. His name is oh God, I can't think of his name right now. But did you watch the series Atlanta?
I seen the show Atlanta a little bit.
Okay,
yeah.
So not Paperboy, but the other guy, right? Lakeith Stanfield. Lakeith Stanfield is the voice for this guy named Yasuke, the Black Samurai, in this. But it's like they're trying to add in some racism and things like that into the show because he's black. He's the only black person there. So even had him when he got sold, and the guy was like telling him, he was like, hey, let's go ahead and wash him because they thought he was dirty. So they're sitting there washing him, right? And they put this in the show, and they're trying to wash him. They're like, why are you still brown? Or why are you still black? And he's like, it's my skin. And the guy was just so amazed that his skin was brown that he said, oh, I'm going to take you in, and you're going to be one of my highly decorated samurai. And it was like, what? It felt like forced.
It's so forced. Like, we have Afro Samurai, we have, culture differences. Like, I mean, we watch One Piece, or we watch the different animes, and we can relate to certain, things. We joke about Goku being called a monkey by Frieza,
But the people say that's racist. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't watch these shows for that. And the thing about it is, I'm saying y'all take the most negative stereotypes to make it seem like they are looking for a reason to make fun of black people. I don't view it that way. I just view it like, look, they're starting to realize that now, honestly, because of the way black people are, we're very tribalistic people. When black people see black people in anime, they get excited and they want to watch the show. You know what I mean? It's no way around that. When they see a black person, like there was another show on Netflix, like I said, called Baki. And they had a character in there who was Muhammad Ali Jr. And Muhammad Ali Jr. created this own fighting style that they call like the Muhammad Ali martial arts or whatnot. And that's what they were basically saying. The reason why Muhammad Ali was so good was not because he was a good boxer, but because he had actually created a martial art. And it was an interesting story how they tried to do it. But it's like, I know a lot more black people watch Baki because he was in the show or because they have black characters. When I watched something, I didn't pick Naruto because I eventually knew we was going to get to the Cloud Village. I said, oh, those people look black-ish, right? You know what I mean? I didn't do that. I watched it because I heard it was a good anime, and that's my focus. I don't watch, like you say, One Piece, and I'm sitting there like, where are the black people in this world? It's a world where they eat devil fruit and the main character is very stretchy. I'm not concerned about having equality or diversity in my characters because it's not always like people. I'm like, why do y'all care? Because the other thing about it is a lot of people say, well, these people don't even look Japanese. Why do you care what the characters look like? You understand what I'm saying? Like, I've never understood it, but that's the part where I say I don't understand it.
And I've seen that come out into, if you go to Otakon or if you go to any of the anime conferences that are just like the comic book conferences, you can see some people get upset if they see a black woman wearing 2 meatballs and she looked like Sailor Moon. But then when you have a white girl, Sailor Moon is Japanese. But if you have a white or a light-skinned sister dress up like that, no, there's no issue. But then if you have like a whole bunch of black women that are dark-skinned dress up like the whole team, then now everybody is saying something about it. So
yeah, I mean, because like, my hair is braided right now, but it's gotten super long over the, the panini, as I like to call it. I don't use that other word anymore, but ever since, we've been in the middle of a panini, my hair got really long, right? So I was like, shoot, man, I've been getting in the gym a little bit. I'm like, man, if they have Dragon Con in Atlanta this year, I was like, I'm definitely gonna go as Goku this year. And I was gonna dye my hair like that bright yellow and go as a Super Saiyan. And I dare somebody to say something. Because I think people want to talk about cultural appropriations, but I'm like, how can it be cultural appropriations if I'm appropriating something that doesn't exist? Goku is a Saiyan. He's not even a human being. So I can't be, you know what I mean? I can't appropriate.
So I seen it.
You know what I mean? Like, I would look at people like, like somebody would ask me this question. I'll ask you the question. If somebody wanted like everybody hyped up Black Panther, but I'm like, the movie was okay to me, but I'm like, I had Blade, so I don't even know what y'all was so hype about. I had Meteor Man. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't understand what y'all was so hype about. It's cool. Y'all liked it. Y'all felt that, but I'm like, y'all are late in the game on this. But
I felt like they felt it because he's from Africa and he's from Africa and he's strong, and I guess. But me personally, the storyline bothers me. It bothers me that there was somebody who could have helped us not be chattel slaves, and they actually had a cloaking device and made them look like they didn't have money and stuff. And I was like, y'all could have had boats and ships and just came and
y'all showed up like that was poor. Yeah, you told the entire world you were poor because you didn't want to help anybody. That's not a good line to have. And then you brought in the air quote villain who ends up dying.
And I was like, we could have recreated Blank Man. Blank Man was a regular guy. We could have did Meteor. We did Meteor Man. We could have had a Hancock too. We can get more original characters. I know there's lots of Black artists and Black writers, or even white ones. Anybody. I don't care if they're color, but we could create our own stuff. And did you know that during Black Wall Street and during that history as being a blerd of history and blerd of conservatism, we actually had our own stuff like that. We had our own comic studio, we had our own theaters, we had our own music, but when we started integrating, a lot of that stuff got lost.
Right, because I think that at the end of the day, a lot of people don't want to admit this, but there is a white standard that I believe a Black America wants to achieve, right? It's not just a standard of excellence. It's not just a standard of success. It's a white standard of success. That's the reason why you hear people, and I know sometimes we point out things with white conservatives sometimes just because they're being ridiculous, and we point out the hypocrisy. But if they wouldn't be so hypocritical at times, we wouldn't even have to use the separation of the term, right? Like I posted something today talking about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk came out and he said people who focus on race are racist. Then Charlie Kirk 2 weeks ago said, talking to the mayor of Chicago, saying, well, if you're focused on the Black community and you're focused on the epidemic of Black on Black crime, I'm like, why are you just not focused on Chicago as a city? She's the mayor of Chicago. She's not the mayor of the Black community. She should be focused on crime citywide. She shouldn't be focused on crime as it is. But it's like people want to pick and choose when race is important. So I said, if it's not important, don't separate it ever. If it is important, right, then admit that it's important, but you can say, I don't want to focus on it, completely fine. But it's like when you keep doing this hypocritical stuff, you're going to cause people to bring attention to it. And I think that was one of the things that we're trying to get on Twitter, that, or just, out there in the public period, like, the struggle that Black people have in America, or the different things that happen to them, everybody's story is different. Like you said, Black people aren't this, I hate that term, Black people aren't a monolith, but it's so true. That's why you have so many, like Black society has so many different segments of it, right? Like you got your conscious side, right? You got your Kemetan side, the people who believe in Egypt and they want to talk about that. The people who are non-religious. You got your BLERD culture. You got, you have your uppity Black bougie society, right? You got that people. You have the ghetto, the hood part. You understand that street stuff. You have so many different segments of Black society, but everybody wants to try to give us like this one size fits all. And what I keep trying to tell people is, why is it that you want a certain type of individual? You understand what I'm saying? Because like a person like me, we've had these discussions on. You've been on my channel. I'm on your channel now. We've had discussions about movies, comic book stuff like that. You want to talk about what's going on now in the country? Cool, let's do it. Me personally, if I wasn't on your show right now, I'd be watching the playoffs. You understand what I'm saying? The show, shameless plug, every Monday at 7 p.m. the Brown Paper Bag Podcast. We're talking about Black relationships. We're talking about different things because if I only focus on one aspect of life or one, I'm not going to be able to not necessarily reach people to do the conversion part, but I think what's really lacking from conservatism is the humanity of it. You understand what I'm saying? When I say the humanity, I am talking about being an individual and it's perfectly acceptable. Saying that you don't want me a certain way. It's like, do I have to have pro-Israel, Blue Lives Matter, race ain't? I have to follow that stereotype to be air quote Black conservative.
That's the beauty of why I love having you on the show, and that's the beauty of why we do what we do at the Conscious Conservative. Because conscious people always think that we're gonna put a kufi on and we're gonna be like the Hotep. But conscious, right. Which I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying
no. I know what you mean, but that's what. But once again,
we're just trying to bring awareness to let people know that there's options, that there are Black people that don't talk like some other people.
Correct.
Like that. Conscious just means awareness. And what we mean by awareness is that we're aware that we're Black. We're aware that. But if you put next week I'm gonna have Shamika on, and Shamika started controversy, and we're gonna talk about her Carlton and Will thing that she started controversy, and people was making it out to be something that's not what she said. They made it into a whole different thing. She was just basically saying what you just said, how there's different segments of the Black community, and you might need to appeal differently to different people in a different way. And I didn't take offense to that. And I probably would be more considered a Carlton than a Will, because even though I'm from, Eastside Baltimore and I lived in, Los Angeles, I probably would be considered a Carlton because of my nerd culture. And that's why I wanted to bring attention to nerd culture. And that's why we're doing the show today, because a lot of people don't even know, like people who were making fun, like I said earlier on Twitter, they didn't even know that the word BLERD was a thing, or they might be like, why Black people call themselves a nerd? And it's because people don't think we nerdy.
Right. Or the other thing about it was it wasn't a popular thing. But like even that whole Carlton versus Will thing. I mean, I would honestly agree with some people who were saying that they thought it was air quote a slight. Because I feel like when the show was on, if you were called a Carlton, it wasn't something that was air quote positive. Because the same way it wasn't cool to be a nerd. I 100% agree with you. But we're talking about it in a 2021 perspective. Yes. And now that's not like, for example, what was one of the things they said about Barack Obama? Oh, he's so well spoken. He sounds so smart. He's so smart, right? Being smart and talking well, especially talking about, like, let's just break that down, Barack Obama, for a second. If Barack Obama was a Republican, and let's say he wasn't married to Michelle, let's say he was married to a white woman, Black people would have hated him, period. He would have fit every single cliche that you thought about what a Black Republican, a Black conservative should be. And he would have felt that like to the T. You know what I mean? Even if he would have had Michelle, people still want to, I guarantee you if Barack Obama was a conservative, they'd be like, he half Black. He African, man. I guarantee you they would have found any reason whatsoever. Be like, man, shoot, man, his mom, man, he grew up with them white folks, man. He ain't with us. You understand what I'm saying? Because it is a situation where people will look at who you associate yourself with. And if he was a Republican and he had grew up, like I said, almost like Kaepernick, right? In a white household, he took a white woman to prom. He was with a white person basically up until Michelle just, popped into his life whenever that happened, whatever. They would have clowned him. They would have clowned him, but because he's a Democrat, it became fully acceptable for everything that he did. So people who, the people who got upset at the Carlton is a slight, I'm like, yeah, it's a slight because either A, you don't understand it in the context of the day. You don't understand it in the context of 2021. You're taking it in the context of maybe you got called a Carlton in high school because maybe you were unpopular. Maybe you talked a certain way. I got called a Carlton a couple of times. I got called white boy a couple of times when I was in school. Didn't bother me. I was just like, well, I just asked a person one time. I said, so because I speak proper or whatever the case may be, I said, you call me white. I just asked him. I said, why do you give white people that much credit? I said, don't we have some trailer park trash white people that go to this school? And it was like, well, yeah. And I said, well, that's my point. Do the white people look at them in some high regard? And I said, no, exactly. Oreo, stuff like that. Those were the type of things that were done to the black nerds back in the day. So I get it. But what I'm saying is in 2021, like I said, you can have I posted your sister's artwork. And man, these dudes that I'm talking about, tattoos up and down. Oh, bro, that fire, bro. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you would have beat me up in high school for trying to even mention anime to you. But now you know every single character on there, and I'm looking at these people like, this is what I'm talking about.
Anime? You watch
Come on. Exactly. So it's just about the culture has now progressed to a point where it's like now individuality is somewhat appreciated now. It wasn't appreciated back then. They wanted a certain type of woman, man, whatever the case may be. You had to fit into a certain box. The people who were outside the box, you were outside of the popular society, period.
Yeah, and that was me. But it's okay now, because now when people are talking about it, and I could be like, oh, like the X-Men, Martin Luther King was Xavier, and Malcolm X was
right.
Magneto. Like I can spill all the nerdism I know.
There you go. Now it's like,
oh, you cool now. I'm like,
they gonna probably make a goofy meme of you like, oh snap, she's really bringing that knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Because once again, you don't know, like, this is just information that we've had like stored in our DNA for like years. Like, I was shocked when I found out so many black people were. I think what did it for black people was a Game of Thrones. When I found out so many black people was watching Game of Thrones and The Mandalorian, I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, man, this is the way. I know that's right.
Yeah, all the this is the way memes, and they kept like, you know what I mean? They was like, I saw one was like, Hennessy with fruit juice, no. And it was like Hennessy with soda, and it was like, this is the way. And I'm like, what? What? Y'all are watching like Star Wars is now.
But now it's so trendy,
You wasn't cool talking about, wikis and the different things that was going on in the Star Wars universe back in the day. Lightsabers, Jedi, the Sith, all of that good stuff. So I don't know. I just think, like I said, it has shifted, but I think it's good. But it's just funny to me how people who don't know the source material and they only know what's been presented in front of them, they basically don't do it. Because I know, like, when I went to go see Lord of the Rings, I was almost not afraid, but I was like, I kind of wanted to go sneak into the movies, because I'm like, I would always say when I went to go watch like Lord of the Rings, I wasn't really into it. Somebody got me into the whole Twilight thing. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to the Black Theater on this one. But then when I went to the Black Theater, I was like, oh shoot, it's packed in here. And I'm like, what is going on?
Everybody talking about Edward. Like, wait,
yeah, why is everybody, the Hunger Games, the Twilight, the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, you go to the Black Theater and it's packed. And now any Marvel movie is sold out. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting there like, you've got to be kidding me. I used to come to the Black Theater to watch my movies all the time, and I could put my feet up. Nobody was in there. Now all of a sudden I got to buy my tickets before I go to the, you know what I mean?
I'm like, I should be in the front of the line just for my knowledge alone on the elf culture. Like, no.
But that's what I'm saying. I think that the culture is changing. I don't want to say for the better. I'm glad that some people are starting to open their minds and get into some of this nerdy stuff. So, it gives us another way of kind of bridging that gap. But at the same time, I'm like, a lot of y'all are real late on this. So
yeah, and it makes me funny because I feel late now joining BLERD communities. Like Ronald just posted about how there's a big he put that there's a big BLERD YouTube community, especially for anime. And I was like, I've been watching anime since Astro Boy. Like, what? I'm late to y'all knowing about it. So
yeah, I would say shout out to my boy, man, Justin, man. I went to Hampton with him, right? Now this was a weird thing, right? Being at ACU, being a BLERD, because like I remember we were like, it was weird because we had all kind of got together. And I remember playing Dungeons and Dragons my freshman year, rolling the dice, doing all these things. We would walk around campus and stuff like, oh man, you better cast a protection spell. Like we was doing it all right at an HBCU. And it was like, it was interesting to find people from different parts of the company because my boy Chad was from Philly. My other boy was from Denver. The other guy was from Gary, Indiana. I was from Atlanta. So it was weird to be around different people who was like, you know, didn't care to the fact that nobody really else would think this was cool or whatever the case may be. But it was something that was very eye-opening for me. But, you know, I just think that a lot of people got to understand that when you try to put yourself in this box, and that's my main problem. That's why, like, you know, I rock with, you know, the conscious Black conservatives, but even that term, I kind of separated myself from that because there is a certain stereotype that people expect to see when you use that term. Yes. Regardless whether you're Black or regardless of whether you're white. If you're a white conservative and somebody says, oh, they're a Black conservative, right? But I might not believe the same way you do spiritually. Problematic. I'm just not going to be Blue Lives Matter all the time. Problematic. Now that Trump is out of office, I'm not still singing his praises and all the rest of the stuff that's going on. And oh, we need him back. Hey, that's fine if you want to do that. I got to deal in reality. You understand what I'm saying? And if some, you know, I'm to the point where I'm like, he ain't coming back. So if he ain't coming back, we got to focus on, well, what's the strategy for 2022 and 2024? But it's like people want you to fit into this box. They want you to call yourself a patriot. They don't like it when you talk about Black people. They don't like it when you talk about anything dealing with Africa, African culture. If you like it so much, go away.
Go perfect back meme. Go back.
Yeah. Here you go. Perfect meme I put up on this goes right into this discussion. I put up a meme that shows Superman and it says how America views itself. The second picture was Homelander from The Boys, and it says how the rest of the world views America. And the guy was like, well, if you hate America so much, why don't you just leave? And I'm like,
who said anything about hating it?
Who said anything about hating America? And it's almost like, I don't even like pulling the military card, but I'm like, sir, did you serve?
I try not to too. And I'd be like,
you know what I mean? I don't even want to pull it out. Be like, sir, did you serve this country? You know, did you
I didn't bring it up from,
you know, come on, you don't even want to bring it up. You know, because once again, you're talking to a German Shepherd avatar, so I don't even know if you're a human being or a bot. You know what I mean? So yes. I'm not even trying to pull your card, but when you say I hate this country, I'm like, I don't hate this country. I just recognize what it is. And the bottom line is, when you start having these countries, you can be patriotic, but you still can call out the faults and flaws of America. It's nothing wrong with that. It's what you're supposed to do. Otherwise, you're going to fall in line with what makes you culpable in American society. Like I'll tell people 100% of the time, I have zero issue with good police officers, the individuals. If that is how you choose to make your living, more power to you. I wish you safety in your job. My problem is with the police state or with the entity that is the police, because I know what your job is.
To enforce
the laws. And if the laws are bad, that ain't your fault. But guess what? You got to enforce them. And that's my issue.
Are supposed to be small government.
But you support, but that's my point, right? You support an entity that we know the U.S. government, local governments, county governments, whatever, have no way of making money except through taxes, through fines. Like, explain to me why, if I'm going 67 and a 55, that the government has a right to take some of my money. You can pull me over and tell me to slow down, but you're saying I have to be monetarily punished for going a certain speed. It doesn't make any sense. The fact that you have police officers, especially towards the end of the month, lined up down the highway trying to get people. Why is that? And you don't have a problem with that, and you don't understand that these governments have no way of getting money unless it's through tax dollars or through these fines. When somebody gets out of jail or they're put on bond or bail, explain to me why the government says, hey, if you want to get out of jail, you got to pay $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 to be free. Y'all don't think that's weird? But once again, it's because you got your Blue Lives Matter goggles on. You got your Back to Blue goggles on. You don't understand the entity that the police are. We know how bad the politicians are.
But
we
know do you how think that goes back to our Black culture? Does that go back? That's why we can't see color blindly. That's why we have to say we're Black conservatives. We can't just say we're conservatives or we're just Americans.
No.
Is that why we have, a Black agenda, because we're trying to reach Black voters?
There you go. But that's my thing. It's like you don't want to win because you want to feel like you have a moral superiority. Well, the bottom line is, depending on how you believe religiously, your moral superiority is always going to be thrown out the window if you're talking about trying to win in politics. And what I tell people is, I do not believe my government should legislate morality. I leave that to the parents. I leave that to whatever religion or spiritual guidelines you want to have. But if you have a government that enforces, that was the discussion that I had with Bryson when I went on his channel. If the government's job is to legislate morality, they can also punish you for it. And that's the problem I have. If our let's say our morals aren't the same, because some people say, oh, well, it's Christian. America is a Judeo-Christian country. And I say, okay, I got a question for you. What type of Christian?
We have how many denominations?
How many denominations we got? We talking about Baptist, non-denominational, Protestant, Lutheran, Episcopalian, Methodist, Presbyterian, Kojic, African, AME.
I mean, it's gonna be crazy in America.
You know what I mean? Jehovah's Witness. But you understand what I'm saying? Underneath that Christian tent, there are so many different people. So you could even be a Christian. And let's say, you're a non-denominational Christian. What if we base laws based on your morality as let's say maybe a Lutheran, and they say, oh, well, women, you can't wear pants. Women seen wearing pants will be in prison.
Ooh, I grew up Pentecostal. We have to wear skirts.
Right. You see what I'm saying? But that's what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you even want to talk about the term Christian and you want to base your morality, that's what I'm saying. Whose morality are we going to use? Even that term Christian is problematic because there's so many different ways that you believe. So you could have Christian women being punished for wearing pants because the wrong or right type of Christians got in office and made laws.
That goes back to what we're talking about today with BLERD culture, because to me, it seems like the Black label is the one that bothers people the most. I could be a woman conservative. I can be a mother conservative. I can be a veteran conservative. I can be a Southern conservative. Yeah. I can be almost every single label of my identity until I say that I'm pro-Black conservative.
Yeah.
When I say that, then it's problematic. I'm focused on race. I'm racist. I'm obsessed with my Blackness. I'm obsessed with my skin color, and I feel like it's just a mixture of who I am. It's not more than that. And I think because pro-whiteness might have been tainted, and our pro-Blackness was a reaction to that. Yeah. Because being a nerd that I am, that also involves the historical side.
Right.
And the Republican Party was created out of slavery. It was to abolish slavery. So without Black people here, where the Republicans come from?
There you go. It's like we are the source of why the new Republican Party from 1854 was created. It was created as the anti-slavery to abolitionist party. So it's like if slavery never happens, this entire country is what, Democrats right now? Or some sort of the Democrat Republican Party never split, and we're just some sort of hybrid one-party system over here. Who knows? But the bottom line, and what I tell people is, I don't understand why the Black bothers you, because I look at Black the same way. I'll tell people like this. I never told white people, I never told you to be white. Okay? You know exactly where you come from. If you're white, you can say, I'm Irish and German. Cool. That is a wonderful thing that you have. You have an identity. Says, well, my family comes from Ireland, or my family comes from Scotland, Germany, wherever, it doesn't matter. You know where your people come from. When you're black in America, you basically don't have no idea. So the term black is the same way you need to look at it as being Irish or being Scottish or where your people come from. This country gave us an identity based on the color of our skin. When your ancestors, some of them, came through Ellis Island, right, and you were Italian, why didn't you maintain that? When you used to be Polish, why didn't you maintain that? You decided to be white. White culture is different than Irish culture. So when I look at people and they say, you got a problem with black, well, I don't have a problem with it because it's the identity that we were given. And people say, well, you're not black. You know, if you open up a crayon black, once again, I don't care what type of what type of stipulation you want to put on it. I'm only saying that black is what we were given. We don't have no flag. We don't have no other flag besides the American flag to put up. Period. So a situation where when you say black, that term to me, and I even take some sort of issue sometimes with the so-called black diaspora, because I'm like, if you got another flag that you can throw up, stop saying you black. I take that term black to mean you American. You understand what I'm saying? That's how I look at it. So to me, it's a little bit of a different thing. And I think sometimes people don't understand the term black. Because unlike white, if somebody would have tried to put white on me, I would fill out other and put Italian or Polish or whatever the case may be. And I would not put white if I was white people. That's just me, period. Like, I know we use the term white and black, but to me, it's like you use terms because you want to put us at odds.
Now, how would you feel about people who think that us calling ourselves BLERD is separatists? Like you said that your main goal now is self-sufficiency and owning your business. So do you describe yourself as a black business owner, or do you just say I'm a business owner?
Well, that is true. I feel like I put it to you like this. I'm always gonna be a black man. I don't necessarily say that I'm a black business owner. It depends on what the concept of the conversation is. But what I would say is it depends on how it's being used. The terms, to me, it's one of those things where it depends on the numbers, right? Like, it depends on what we're having the discussion about. If I use that term black business owner, what I'm telling you is it's something abnormal about me doing that, or it's not common to be black and be a business owner. If I say I'm a black father, right, then what I am saying is it's something abnormal about being black and taking care of my children. So I try to be careful about when I use it, because I don't want to put it out there like what I'm saying is abnormal. Because what you don't hear, like, quick sports thing, you never hear nobody say, oh, he's a black running back. All of them are black. You understand what I'm saying? You don't hear that term. You never hear that term. He's a black running back. You understand what I'm saying? Oh, when you watch the game
with a
comes
black
on,
quarterback.
Black quarterback, right? Because guess what? You see how that works?
That's a nerdy comment right there.
Right, but you see how it works. Wow. You use black when it's not the norm. So of course I'm going to say black conservative. Of course I'm going to say BLERD. Of course I'm going to say black quarterback. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you're going to use it when it's not the norm. If it's something that you feel like you're confident or you dominate in, you don't really use that.
A black basketball player.
Come on, man. Like, the MVP of the league this year was European. He wasn't even white. He was European. And I separate the two, right? So the guy who won the NBA thing, he was European. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, it had to be pointed out that he was European, because like when Steve Nash won it, who was Canadian, right? They had to point out the fact that he wasn't black, because the norm in that sport is for the best player to always be black. So we don't have to say, oh, he's a black basketball player, or he's a black WNBA player, or, you know, get a little controversial. It'd be like somebody saying, oh, I'm a straight WNBA player. You know what I mean? Like, they have to go out of their way to let you know about their sexuality, because the norm, in my opinion, in the WNBA is to be a lesbian. So you have people who say, oh, well, I'm a straight WNBA player. Why do they do that? Because they have to like segregate themselves from what the norm is.
So our segregation isn't to separate ourselves or to be special or get special treatment. It's to let it be known that we're there. Because I'm a female veteran, and I always have to, when I go out on Veterans Day with my husband, they give him the thank you for your service, or if I'm driving my car and I park in a veteran spot, they'd be like, did you park for your husband? Like, and I'm like, we met in the Army. We was in the same squad, had the same leadership. You know, I would have never met him if I wouldn't be married right now. Yeah, until I met him. So I understand exactly what you're saying. So sometimes I just say, and I'm a veteran, and people, and you know, it's kind of tricky to say that because you be wanting not to tell people you're a veteran too. You just be sitting back and you're like, oh, you must hate America. I'm like, I served how many years?
Yeah, you know what exactly that. But that goes back to my point. You use it when you want to put emphasis on something. Like you never hear this term, oh, they're a black Democrat. It's like, no, I just hear the term Democrat. People don't say I'm a black Democrat. They just say I'm a Democrat. You know what I mean? Like they're to me, I don't know outside of like the Congressional Black Caucus, right? I don't know how many, and I could be wrong. Somebody could correct me on this, but like there are a lot of like black Republican groups or black conservative groups. I don't know a black Democrat group. I don't know any.
And it's funny you said the Black Caucus because it's Brian Donaldson, I think his name is. He's from Florida and he's a Republican, and he tried to join, and then they was like, nah. He's like, but I'm black and I'm in the House. How come I can't join?
But that's my point. You understand what I'm saying? The fact that exactly. When it comes to him, he's black, and what you say, he's black and he's a Republican. They both have to be pointed out because it is not the norm. And what I tell people is when you talk about the term they love using is identity politics. And what I say is if we could level the playing field a little bit, we wouldn't even have to worry about that. You want to be American, make the party represent America. You understand what I'm saying? If you're saying, well, I only make up 13% of the population, I'm like, all right, well, that's fine. But can 13% of the Republican Party be black? Can we get that much? You know, can
say we don't pick people based on skin color. We only pick people based on if they
on their policy. But the bottom line is you got to explain to me Republicans nationwide. I can give you the Republican platform in like 10 seconds. You're gonna be pro-America, pro-2A, more than likely a Christian, mother, veteran, against socialism, and then that's basically gonna be it. That's where you start off every single time. So if you got a black person and you got a white person, what's the difference? Because everybody has the same platform. There is no diversity. At least the Democrats have their moderates. They have their more liberal. Now they got the straight up Democratic socialists. You understand what I'm saying? Where is that variation in the Republican Party? Like when I was talking to Bryson, I told Bryson straight up because he's very, I don't like using the term like far right, but I guess that's what you would consider somebody like Bryson. If you want to be anti-LGBTQ, if you want your Christian values to be reflected through policy, then you need to have a candidate that represents that for you. You understand what I'm saying? Because that's what I believe that you should be voting for. If we're all voting for the same generic person, there is no separation. So I'm like, why isn't there an evangelical wing of the Republican Party that just focuses on religious stuff? To me, if you're going to use your religion as policy, there should be people that reflect your values and not just in a generic, it's on my campaign, I'm a Christian. I always tell people, like, what does that mean? When you put that on your platform, you being a Christian, is that going to be reflected in your policy? What does that mean?
But that's another thing. There's some people, they'll do that with the non-black Republicans. I see that now because we don't subscribe to the same things as other black conservatives. They want to say that there's a fight on the Republican Party, and I'm like, hold up, Mitt Romney and Trump don't like each other either. So hold up, when they fighting is one thing, but you know, and then the Democrats are fighting and having their thing going on. But we're talking about blerd culture in specific, and it's leaking into everything. And the only reason I feel like that it became a label at all, because like I said, we was blerd before it was called that.
Right.
It's because we had to make it known, like, hey, it's some black people who like this. It's some black people who watch this show. It's some people who
Correct.
want to know why Bran got the throne instead of Tyrion. No, I'm
There
just
you,
kidding.
but you know what? Exactly my point. But that's the reason why you have to start using these things, because I mean, even like I remember, like Snoop, when I found out that like Snoop was watching Game of Thrones. And he was like, man, the first time you see brothers on Game of Thrones, you found out that they all got their nuts cut off. And it's like, you know what I mean? He was talking about the Unsullied. But it was like, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, Snoop, you watch Game of Thrones, man?
Like, wait a minute, how
You see what I'm saying? But it's like, that's the reason why I always believe that's going to go on there, because the bottom line is you want to separate yourself. And regardless of, as people want to do it, you can go to the majority of people's profile and they separate themselves. If you say you're pro-Israel, guess who you don't like? You probably ain't too happy about Palestine. You understand what I'm saying? If you're pro-life, guess who you don't like? You don't like the pro-choice abortion people. So you want to use identity when it's convenient for you. I'm just saying, don't say anything. You shouldn't put pro-Israel, pro-America, pro-nothing. If you're concerned about identity, that's identity politics as well. Is it not? Saying I'm pro-life, that's an identity, because being pro-life means there are people who don't agree with your position. There are people who are not going to like you specifically without knowing anything about you, except for the fact that this is the stance that you had. Same thing, color's a little different because it's something that we see, but I don't know. I like I said, I know we started out on blerd culture, but this is why I even say there is a black nerd culture, because you got to look at it like this, and you can disagree with you want to. Black people, I mean, we got to be honest, black people worldwide, we are the standard for cool, period. Nothing is going to be accepted worldwide unless it comes to us first. The trends, whatever you want to consider cool, you can go back to the 50s and 60s when Elvis Presley started doing what he was doing, and he basically said, oh, I see what these black folks is doing. I'm going to go bring this to white people. Now y'all call him the king of rock and roll. Black people have been deciding what was cool probably since the word was even invented. It's always came through us. So the fact that your culture is supposed to represent like the standard of cool, you can't be talking about this geeky stuff, because you're going to make the culture look less cool. You understand what I'm saying? But
that's
now,
why
once
we
again,
snuck it in. That's why it's in the mainstream now. Like hip hop, for example. I always thought it was funny that people allude talking a certain way to being white, right? But in order to be a great, I don't know about today, but back in the day, to be a great hip hop lyricist, you had to have a great understanding of the English language. You had to know metaphors, similes. You knew entendre, position. You had to know how to change and flip anything up, and at least know how to rhyme more than just your standard, syllables and things like that. So when people be like, oh, you talk a certain way, but then this is what's popular in our culture, I'm like, it's not matching up.
It's not right, because that's what I think I made a post about that one day. I said, I find it funny that when you're having a conversation, people always want to say, oh, if you're talking proper, you sound white. I said, well, if I put a beat behind it, you would like it. You understand what I'm saying? I said, that's the only difference. I'll put a beat behind it and it's fine. Because I was listening to this dude, on Facebook. They have all these like rap ads, and I'm listening to this guy using all these big words, and I know what they mean. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, who is listening to that? Some people like, oh man, he's spitting. But I'm like, do you actually know what he's actually saying? Like, he's going 2 and 3 levels deep on y'all, but you're missing it. You know what I mean? But that's once again, if you're going to set the standard for cool, it becomes very difficult to not talk about this blerd culture, because once again, you don't want somebody believing that your culture is not cool. So that's where it comes in. So I don't mind the segregation. I don't mind calling myself a blerd, black nerd, whatever the case may be. That's just what it is, because once again, when it's not the norm, you normally have some sort of identifier that lets people know that it's not.
Okay, I got 2 questions for you. First one, favorite Batman? Who you like as who is your favorite Batman currently? Let's put it that way.
Are you talking about
That's a new movie coming out, so we can't
you
count
talking about in the movies, right?
movies. Favorite Batman or favorite Batman movie?
I mean, I'm gonna go. I mean, I'm sorry, it's still Michael Keaton. I go back to the
Yes,
first one. It's Michael Keaton.
friends.
You know, yeah. I don't get me wrong. I like the concept of George Clooney as Batman, but they made those movies so corny. I can't even begin to even talk about him. And I didn't like like the recent one where the guy kind of did the I thought that was real corny. Yeah, the Christian Bale one, and I'm not feeling the Twilight Batman either. So it hadn't even came out yet.
Do you like Batfleck? Do you like Ben Affleck Justice League?
No,
Batman versus no. So it's still Michael Keaton.
It's still Michael Keaton. Yeah, he's my favorite. Yeah, Michael Keaton's always gonna be my favorite Batman. Yeah,
I always mess with people and say Kevin Conroy and see if they know which Batman that is.
Now I was gonna say I didn't know if he was on the list because I would say if Kevin Conroy is on the list.
Yeah, I always throw that out there to throw.
I'm taking Kevin Conroy because he to me has emulated, even though it's just his voice, he's the one who has emulated Batman the best. So if Kevin Conroy is available, I'll take him.
Got it. Okay. So how do you feel about this new? So going back, we put a pin in it. We didn't really talk about it. So how are you feeling about this new Black Superman's coming out? You're not watching it. You're gonna ignore it. You're gonna act like it don't happen. You want?
I've made a conscious decision, right? And I told myself I can't put my energy, and most importantly, I can't put my money into something that I know is going to be some pandering nonsense. So when it's going to be some pandering nonsense, there's no reason to have a Black Superman, in my opinion, because you got to show them to me in the comic books. I mean, you got to do Steel. If you want the closest thing to Black Superman, do Steel, but don't make Clark Kent black. That's dumb. You know, it's going to be weird. Are you going to have him adopted by a white family, or is it going to be a Black family in Kansas now? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not with it. So what I decided is, if a movie decides to go on this social justice, trying to pander to now that the quote unquote the Black nerd culture, or just a lot of different people are involved in this now, I'm not going to go watch it. That is the reason why I was going to make this announcement later, but I am boycotting the Eternals. I'm not watching it.
The Eternals.
Marvel.
Yeah,
the new one coming out. Yeah, I'm boycotting.
What happened with that? What is up with that? I mean, I knew about it, but it's not okay. On my mind. I'm just watching Loki right now. So
there are two main characters that they did the whole gender swapping with. Not really a problem with that, but my problem is with my boy. I call him Paperboy. My boy Paperboy from Atlanta. They already talking about they're going to be this scene where he's got a husband, and Marvel is going to have the first gay kiss or gay person for whatever reason, right? And I'm like, why are y'all doing this? He's not even gay in the comic books. You know, like, there are gay characters that we've already seen on screen. They just didn't focus on it. But I'm like, why are y'all just making him gay? So I feel like the Eternals is gonna have a bunch of outline messages. I'm not gonna watch it. Well, I'll put it to you like this. I'm not gonna watch it in theaters. I am planning to bootleg. I'm planning to bootleg it because I do a comic book show, man. I can't not watch it, but I'm not paying to watch it. That's the way I'm gonna look at it. I'm not gonna pay to watch it
like I did Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pay to exactly. So I'm just like, to the point. What is wrong with the source material, right? I don't need. The same way I didn't need Black superheroes to relate to, because I related to Lionel, who was a freaking Thundercat. I didn't say
yes,
even though everybody knew Panthro was the Black one, but that's against the point. You know what I mean? Everybody knew Panthro was Black. That's against the point. The bottom line is, I didn't look at the Thundercats and say which one of these Thundercats is going to be the Black one and be the one that I relate to. I said I thought it was cool, and I was fine with stuff being cool. When I watched Star Wars, I understand you wanted to bring in Lando Calrissian to appeal to Black people. That's fine. I was fine with Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. I was fine. Lando Calrissian is to me not even somebody even worth talking about. If you really want to go into Star Wars, I know we're not going to go too much into that, but you know, I'm just
hour and a half.
No, but you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I don't watch a show because I feel like my mind on an individual level is strong enough by itself that I don't have to see myself in a character to gain, you know, some sort of outer, you know, like I don't need to see myself in a character to watch it. Why?
I think it's better when it's organic and it's not, when you can tell that's not intentional.
Correct.
When they just, I'm gonna make this person gay because I want gay people to, or I'm gonna make this person Mexican because no, you can just write a character and then have everybody audition for that character, who whatever the person that wins is who the character is, or something like that.
But see, this is my point, right? One of my favorite characters in the MCU is gay, and he's been gay the whole time, but nobody's really said anything about it. And I'm like, that's the way it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? And it's a situation where I'm sitting there watching it, like it's not like they went out their way for him to even say he was gay.
Like, we didn't know Captain Singh on CW was going to be gay. We just seen his husband one day, and we're like, oh, he gay. Okay.
Oh, okay, cool. But it wasn't like you made a big deal out of it, because I'm gonna tell you something. You can Google it if you don't believe me. But I'm pretty sure you saw Thor Ragnarok, right?
Yeah.
Korg, the rock dude, he's gay. Once again, but you see what I'm saying? It was like, it wasn't like they had to have him kissing some other rock man. It's like, if you want to Google it, right, you can find out he's gay. But it wasn't like Thor Ragnarok just had like a scene where his boyfriend came up and they were kissing and doing something like that.
Oh, I know a good one we can talk about before we get out of here. So I don't know how much of the CW network you watch.
A little bit.
But so Batwoman, when she came out, she was gay and everything, which was fine. But they made it seem like they kept on making it about her being gay. And I was like, isn't Sarah Lance gay, the White Canary? Like, she was people throughout the time traveling. She got a girlfriend. She messed with Supergirl's sister. Yeah. I was like, no one cares. Like, why they kept going into her being, and I don't know if it's because she's gay in real life or what, but I was like, okay, you know, not all of us are for LGBT. We got family.
But see, that was my point. But see, that's my point. I never watched Batwoman because of that point, because before I even know this series was coming out, all I saw was first LGBTQ character. She's going to be a lesbian. She's going to be a lesbian. I'm like thinking to myself, what's the storyline? All I'm seeing is all this praise about that. That's the reason why I was boycotting the Eternals, because I'm sitting there thinking to myself, why do I even, like, you just released a boring, like a 1.5 minute trailer of the movie that comes out later on this year. Why do I even know about this one scene about this homosexual kiss? Why do I even know about that? Why was that what you pushed about the movie? So that's the reason why I'm saying I don't have no problem with race, sexuality, all these things being brought out in comic books and the quote unquote nerd culture. I just don't like it when it's the focus. You understand what I'm saying? When I watch Game of Thrones, right? I mean, now you look at Game of Thrones, we can really talk about some things that was brought to the forefront that are odd. Like, you know what I mean? Incest. Game of Thrones made incest, I don't want to say popular, but they made it seem like it was a shoulder shrug thing to talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they just rolled past it.
Man, you just rolled past it back there. Yeah, like the first episode when it was like Jamie and they pushed Bran out the window, I'm like, yo, is he hitting his sister? You know what I mean? And it was like, you know what I mean? And it was like,
talk about the next episode, and they just keep on going.
Everybody just glanced past that. The whole Jon Snow being with his aunt, you glance past that because honestly,
yeah, I was trying to do the math in my head. Like, wait, is that?
Yeah, do I want them to be together? I really don't care. And it's like, oh, well, you know, the Targaryens are kind of used to incest, so at least Shane is brother. And it's like, you know what? I was just like, but that's how it goes, right?
That's so much thought too.
But they had the characters that were gay. They had the different things that were going on that fit with the book. But it wasn't like it was so much that it was just like, okay, now it's just too much. You know what I mean? They did it, and I feel like that's where you find, you know, you got a good blend. when you're doing something and you can make your point, but it's not to the point where it's like your show is now not about the fun comic book stuff. Your show now is about making some sort of social message, which I don't enjoy.
Yes.
Because comic books is what, in my opinion, what it was for me, it was always an escape. This reality, all those different things, it was always an escape for me. So it's like, if I still got to live in reality, even in my comic book, what's the point?
Because I seen that with an episode of Game of Thrones, not Game of Thrones, Walking Dead.
Yep.
It was Talking Dead that came after. I think it was when Beth got killed by the lady when he was inside of the Atlanta hospital. There was people afterward talking, and they kept calling the evil lady Sarah Palin and making her a Republican, and people was like, "No, don't start talking about politics. I watch Walking Dead to get away from it."
Yeah, or like I don't know if you watched it. I know we kind of just talking, but like, for example, the actor that plays Homelander.
Yes.
Did you hear what he said? His motivation for the character was?
Who, Trump? What is that?
Yes, he said that. I'm sorry. Yeah, he said that's where he got his motivation from. Yeah, because they had, and it's like when you start hearing the boys and all of them talk, and then the guy who plays the what's the guy name? Not Billy, but the main character.
Bobby? Robert?
No. The black, the main character, the one whose wife got. Oh, spoiler alert! The one whose wife got murdered.
Oh, spoiler! Yeah.
Billy.
I know who you're talking about. The guy.
I think his name is Billy Butcher. Butcher. Right?
There we go.
Right. Billy Butcher. So they were all talking. They were like, "Yeah, oh, I saw that because I could really feel Trump coming out in your character." I'm like, when is Trump this? You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like you don't want to have to go into anti-defense mode. You're like, Homelander? Like, you must really view Trump as a psychopath. You know what I mean? To really put him on Homelander's level. Like, that's insane.
I felt like that comment is pandering because
but that's what I'm saying.
Said anybody. How
you could have said anybody. You could have said, I mean, anybody in history, bro. I mean, just any. It didn't have to go to real life. You could have said, I took a villain from whatever to use as who I decided to channel. But it's like you said, you used Donald Trump to channel a psychotic superhero, air quotes, that is homicidal and got mommy issues. I'm like, that's the part of it where I said I had to take issue when they start doing that type of pandering. But a lot of people don't realize, I know we run over, but in The Boys, the Nazi lady from last year was supposed to be a man, but they said they didn't want to make her a man because they thought the show had too many white men as it had its limit of white men.
They had a white quota.
They reached their quota of white men, so they decided to gender swap it and make her into a woman, because that definitely didn't happen in the comics. But yeah.
All right. I know we're getting into the show. We talk because we're good. This is like my core of talking about nerdism. I thank you guys for joining me on Mrs. Pinky Thoughts. I'm your host, Nicole Pinkston, and I am joined you by Saul G. And we was talking about BLERD culture inside of the Conscious Conservative Network. And I thank you guys for joining us. Do you want to do your pluggables before we leave out of here?
Yeah, man. Like I said, if you want to, you can follow me at 50 Shades of Saul G on Twitter. If you want some good memes, some good funny stuff, I do the politics. Like, you're gonna get 1 out of 10 with me. I post 9 memes and then I'll give you 1 political thing or whatever. But definitely follow me on Twitter if you want to. You can follow the entire Libre Network at the Libre Network on IG. And you can go check out my website. That is just like any other social media platform, or like YouTube or Twitter, at libretv.co. Get you a free account. And unlike the big boys, I do not care what you say, as long as you're not trying to start no terrorist network or do some terrible stuff to children. Outside of that, your opinion is your opinion. Whatever you post is whatever you post, and it is what it is. So that's who I am, man. I appreciate you for having me on, and I this is right up my alleyway. So anything to get me out of the who are we gonna run, and Democrats and Republicans and conservative and white people and all that stuff. Yeah, anything that gets me out of that talking, I'm glad to do it. So I thank you for having me on.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. And until next time, see you guys later. Thank you so